Hey there, I'm Marina Orms of Astrology Heals, and today I wanted to talk about climate change, how astrology can and can't help us understand what's going on, how it can maybe help us understand the bigger picture of where we're at. And it's certainly a big story in the news this summer. It's, of course, summer in the Northern Hemisphere. But let's take a look at what the outer planets are doing and how it can help us navigate or understand or maybe see the bigger picture of what's going on. So obviously, record high temperatures, climate change is real, it's scary. And when we look at it in the context of the outer planets in astrology, first of all, a little disclaimer, my perspective, right, is evolutionary astrology. So I'm looking at it from the perspective of how we as human beings are having this experience to help us become more of who we are here to be. And that is the lens through which I look at astrology and human well-being and the process of, how we're becoming our best selves or healing. So as we look at astrology, I am thinking about it from the perspective of what is happening, what is unfolding, how is it in alignment with the story of the planets, and how is that story of the planets supporting our process, our healing, our growth, our evolution. There certainly are ways of looking at this in terms of it being a tragedy, which of course it is, but how the process of human beings coming to terms with the evolutionary pressures that are here to help us become who we are becoming. And if you think about the symbolism of the planets, the qualitative themes that the planets bring us. The planet Pluto is a deeper place of power and truth and confrontations with deeper truth coming from the shadow up to the surface to be seen by the light of day, so it can be transformed. So Pluto, the qualitative theme of Pluto is about how we transform, how we look at those deeper places of maybe darkness or some of our fears that are, needing to be healed and brought into the light. So we have this quality, this experience of transformation of, in a sense. So Pluto is the planet of the Lord of the underworld, right? Hades and Pluto, and going to that depth of the place of death and rebirth. So going to the underworld and then reemerging transformed. That's the story of Pluto and Hades, and how how Pluto, represents that path of the underworld and that deeper place of complete transformation. So think about a snake shedding its skin, right, to grow, to become something new that it hasn't been before. Think about a caterpillar going into a cocoon to emerge as a butterfly. It is that process of letting go, of shedding the old skin, of releasing who we have been so we can step into who we are becoming. So that's Pluto. And then Pluto, because it is so far out in our solar system, it has a very long orbit, and it takes 246, I think, ish years to complete its orbit, to go all the way around the zodiac. And so with it taking so long to go around, it takes a very long time that it stays in a sign. And so it brings these themes of the transformational work that we are doing from these deeper places of bringing what has been in the darkness into light. And now Pluto is in the sign of Capricorn. So Capricorn is about our limitations. It's about structures and systems and ways of organizing. It's about rules. But what do rules do? They give us a structure. They give us a way to operate, a system to operate within, but they also define what we can and can't do. So Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn, and the planet Saturn and the sign of Capricorn both have to do with how we come to terms with our limitations, and specifically how those limitations help us grow. So when we experience a limitation, we also experience an opportunity to become creative. So when life hands you lemons, make lemonade, right? So it is often the experience of our limitations that helps us to discover what we're capable of. So when we have something hard that we have to work hard to achieve, not only are we pushed to be creative, to think outside the box, to discover new ways forward, but also we have this feeling of satisfaction, right? We get the feeling of achievement, the reward of, yes, I did this. I worked hard. I put in the effort, and look what I created. And so we develop self-esteem. We develop self-confidence. We develop self-trust through that process of confronting our limitations, if we rise to the challenge. And so looking at this placement of Pluto in Capricorn from the bigger picture of our evolutionary process, the human spiritual evolution, our human self-awareness, consciousness, evolution in who we are and in what we're capable of as a collective. So 246 years ago, we were in, the American Revolution. So we are not only having Pluto going through Capricorn, but we're also experiencing the Pluto return of the United States. And so coming full circle as a country, as a nation, returning to this point where we were created, and having an opportunity to come to terms with some of the things that were either came from or went into a place of darkness, right? So those deeper places of the underworld that need to be reckoned with, that need to be reconciled, that we need to come to terms with, that we need to show up for in terms of how we are going to create our future and respond to our limitations through creative thinking, through adaptation, through the ability to discover what we are capable of. So we have that as a backdrop, right? And then so since 2008, Pluto has been in Capricorn. It did go briefly into Aquarius earlier this year, giving us a taste, dipping our toes in the water of what Pluto in Aquarius will look like and feel like. And we are at the end, really, of our time of Pluto in Capricorn. It's going to be shifting into Aquarius more and more going forward. So I'll talk about that in a moment. But first, coming back to this idea of going into the underworld, of confronting our limitations. This is really the ultimate in terms of our, so first of all, human beings used to exist in tribes, right? We were very localized. We didn't have the global internet. We didn't have telephones, right? Back in the day, things were, the experience of belonging was in a tribe or a local area, right? And so as we have moved into this global community that we exist in currently, we have to reckon with things on a global scale. And so it's really the first time in human history that we've done this process of reckoning after we have come together in a global neural network called the internet. And so we're grappling with these bigger questions on a global scale, on a massive global level. So whereas having to confront your ultimate limitation, your ultimate mortality might have 250, 500, however many thousands of years ago, it might have meant, coming to terms with or grappling with your society coming to an end, your tribe, grappling with its mortality. Again, it's not showing us the outcome of what happened. It's showing us that there was this theme of dealing with the concept of limitation. And so the same way that we as human beings deal with the concept of our mortality, our ultimate limitation, we have to grapple with this on a global scale for the first time. And we are coming to terms with what we have created, right? With the lack of responsibility we've had since we've known about climate change, which has been for decades now. Since the Industrial Revolution, when people potentially were noticing, we're not doing good things to the earth, or that it could have ramifications down the road. So here we are facing those ramifications, and the process of us collectively as human beings needing to grapple with our limitations as a species, grapple with our mortality as a species. That is what we are evolutionarily dealing with. And so this is our collective human descent into the underworld, to go, wow, we could have total global annihilation, right? And it's not just climate change. There's nuclear war. There's other ways this can show up. But the idea that with Pluto in Capricorn, these things, they're not originating with Pluto in Capricorn. They've been there for, the threat of nuclear destruction has been there for a long time. But with Pluto in Capricorn, we are really having to ask ourselves, who are we? Who do we want to be? How are we going to respond to this mortality, this potential end of humanity? Who are we going to become? How are we going to be creative in the face of this limitation? How are we going to respond, right? What is our responsibility, which is a huge keyword for Capricorn? Responsibility, how we are going to respond. And so that is, from an evolutionary perspective, that is what we're confronting. We are being asked to ask ourselves, who are we? How are we going to respond? Who are we going to be? How are we going to solve this problem? Are we going to be able to solve it? What will that look like? Are we willing to make changes to act from that place of responsibility, right? So, okay. So we did have Pluto go briefly into Aquarius earlier this year, through the late winter and spring. And now Pluto has gone retrograde back into Capricorn. So here we are confronting these themes. Now, when Pluto, and as Pluto, makes it's sliding in and out, it's eventually going to stay in Aquarius for many years. but we're in the transition process right now, this year and next year, between going back and forth between Capricorn and Aquarius. But once with Pluto shifting into Aquarius, we're going to be more idea focused. So Aquarius is an air sign. Not only is it an air sign, it is the sign of higher consciousness. It's a sign of higher ideas, of ideals, of thinking outside the box, of creative thinking, of problem solving from a new place of consciousness. So we are shifting into this energy that brings a spirit of problem solving. What will we do with that? That's up to us. But we have this again, we are always making choices in the context of these planetary alignments, these planetary, the story that the planets are telling us, that the story the planets are telling that we are participating in, that it gives us these opportunities to make choices within the story, because we are the characters in the story. So how are we going to respond? How are we going to write this story? And there's some of it that may feel outside of your power, outside of your control, right? Like like you can recycle, you can ride your bike instead of driving your car, but really ultimately, is that going to solve the problem? Well, we need bigger changes. So we have to ask ourselves, who are we going to be? How are we going to advocate for those bigger changes? How are we going to talk to our friends? How are we going to create an environment, a social environment where people can change their minds about how they've seen things in the past, right? And so also Pluto in Capricorn is clinging. There's a sense of clinging to the past with Capricorn energy, whereas Aquarian energy is very future oriented. It's about opening doors to new possibilities and new solutions. So with Pluto in Capricorn, what we're doing is we're really having to confront something that's trying to pull us into the past, what has worked in the past, what we know from the past, right? And if fossil fuels are what worked for us in the past, well, that's what we know. So let's go back to that. It has a certain comfort to it. Not saying it's good, but societally and collectively, there's something pulling us back to that old way of being, even though it's not very old, really. It's pretty new in the whole scheme of human history, but old in the sense of where we are at culturally and politically right now. So this placement of Pluto is a big factor in how we look at and think about climate change. And from this bigger picture perspective, you can see that climate change is an evolutionary pressure on us as human beings to step into our new story, to ask ourselves, how are we each as individuals going to participate in this new story? How can we tell it differently? How can we help others to make that shift, to see it differently? And that doesn't mean, by the way, like trying to clobber someone over the head with your point, right? So there's subtlety here. There are ways of being present to other people who disagree with you, or who maybe aren't there yet in terms of seeing what changes you and us and we and the world need to make. So the point is that there are lots of creative ways for you to show up in your life and to be a force for change by acknowledging possibility, by stepping into hope for the future. So that's the other thing about this, is when we see events in the world as happening to us, we tend to feel powerless. But if we can shift that and see ourselves as the center of the change, that we have the power over ourselves and our beliefs and our ways of thinking about things and our thoughts, our behaviors, our feelings, how we express our feelings. We have a lot of personal power in how we show up for things. And so the future is not written. There is still a lot we can do to mitigate and change the story of where climate change is headed. And who knows what bigger picture solutions we might be able to come up with if we are thinking in terms of bigger picture solutions. So how can you support the people, the institutions, the organizations that are thinking about these bigger picture solutions? How can you learn more and get involved and support new thinking, future-oriented thinking, solutions-oriented thinking? How can you do that in your life? You, as one person, right? You can make a difference. And especially when you talk to your friends about it, when you create space for others who disagree with you and listen to them, to hear their perspective, to engage in a productive dialogue so that maybe they're willing to hear your perspective. And so it's, all these things about how we are learning as ourselves, as individuals, to be more healthy, more energized, more whole, all the self-care things we talk about here on this YouTube channel, and how we can show up for others to facilitate this healing process, this transformational process that humanity is going through collectively. Okay, so Pluto is a big part of this. Pluto, again, the underworld, the transformation, the confrontation with our mortality, with our ultimate limitations. And how are we going to respond to that? What do we need to choose creatively in terms of our thinking and our willingness to step into possibility? Okay, and then we have other planets also influencing this. We're going to be having so first of all, this summer we don't have a lot of change in the outer planets. They're Saturn and Neptune are both in Pisces. They're going to stay in Pisces for several more months. Same with Uranus and Jupiter in Taurus. So the energy that we have is more or less the energy that we are working on for a little while here, at least until January, when Pluto will shift into Aquarius again. So we're kind of doing the work to create change within ourselves, to focus on a new normal related to Uranus in Taurus, upheaval, change, shift in our daily routines, in what we see as normal, in how we shape reality and participate in the reality we want to live in. So with Uranus and Taurus, we're doing that work of creating a new normal actively, consciously, and through our own lives and choices and behaviors. And then we've got Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, taking us into a bigger picture perspective, asking us to ask the bigger questions about who we are, about what's important to us, what is our spiritual connection, how do we participate in the world from those bigger picture principles and spiritual values and things we believe in, like love and caring and compassion and healing and some of these really positive qualities that we want for ourselves and for humanity. So thinking about those, anchoring in those, inviting those in terms of how we are telling our story, the narrative, the ways that we live and embody our values. And Saturn in Pisces is asking us to do that. It's saying incorporate, right? Incorporate. So bring it into your body. bring those spiritual values into your everyday life, into your physical world, into how you do things, how you show up, how you make choices in your day-to-day life. So it wants us to be responsible in how we are embodying these bigger spiritual principles. Neptune is also asking us to think about our guiding principles in terms of our mythology. What is the bigger picture of the story we want to tell about who we are, where we belong, how we care for one another, how we create a society and a culture and a world that is caring and compassionate and in alignment with these bigger guiding principles, as opposed to telling a spiritual story that that pits people against each other, or that makes us need to be in the right. So, my story is the right story and your story is the wrong story. Instead, let's get into this bigger spiritual place of heart, where we recognize that we really are all one. We really do want the same things at the end of the day. We want to be able to live our lives in safety. We want our loved ones to be cared for. We want future generations to be to have a world to live in. And so, maybe not everybody agrees with that, but I think for most of us, our bigger spiritual principles, we want people to be having these opportunities to feel connected, to belong, and to have the possibility to make the lives we want to create for ourselves. So, okay, so that's Saturn, Neptune in Pisces. We also have Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus. These are the outer planets. And so right now we have a lot of earth and water energy as we head into 2025 so in 2024, Pluto goes into Aquarius. 2025, we've got Uranus going into Gemini and Neptune going into Aries. So we're going to have some really different feeling. It's going to be more air and fire. So the air and fire energies are more outward. They are more proactive, idea-oriented. Air is about our thinking, our problem-solving abilities. Earth and water are more generative, more creative, more focused on our healing, our well-being, our feelings. Water is feelings. So there's going to be a really different vibe as we head into 2025 and 2026, and those shifts into, so first Pluto in 2024, and then Uranus and Neptune in 2025-26, going into Uranus into Gemini and Neptune into Aries. But Aries is the sign of the warrior and courage and action, right? So we've got that combined with Pluto in Aquarius, thinking outside the box, new solutions, problem solving, and as well as Uranus going into Gemini, which Uranus is the planet of free thinking, of being true to yourself, but also, this bigger picture of how we solve problems and how we shift into a higher consciousness, and going into Gemini, getting really curious. So lots of opportunity for new thinking outside the box, new possibility, new solutions, having a mind of wonder, being blown away by what's possible. All planetary placements have their downside and their potential, but it's how we step up. It's how we respond. It's how we step into all we are capable of from this invitation of the qualities that the planets bring us. So right now, this summer, with the themes of climate change, we get to feel the reality of it. We get to feel the truth of it. We get to ask ourselves, how can I be responsible? What can I do? How can I show up in ways that support change, that support organizations that are doing good work, that are doing generating good ideas, and real solutions? And also, how can I show up in my community in ways that support people to be on board with the way that we need to go in the future? So I know that many of you watching this channel are really interested in how we can collectively heal and solve these problems of climate change. So it's not over. We also have, of course, the political things that are going on in the United States, in the world, that things happening in the world that are not good. So this is also part of our confrontation with mortality. It's also part of how we need to step up and be responsible. What are we doing in our lives? And all of it starts with self-care. So don't forget that when you are taking care of yourself, that's when you can show up and be your best self, be your most creative, your most productive, your most effective and powerful in terms of bringing about the changes you want to see, both in your life and in the world. So when you start with self-care, build that foundation, trust yourself, know who you are, know what's important to you, then from there you can step into the world in the ways that you feel called to make a difference and to bring about healing and change in a positive direction. So thank you so much for being here with me and following my train of thought about what's going on with the planets, how the themes of climate change are actually it's real. It's very real. And that's what Capricorn is about. It's about things that are real. It's about, when you're in a dream, maybe bad things can happen and you can wake up and they dissolve. They're not really there anymore. It was just a dream, right? But when it's in your real life, it really happens. It's real. It really hurts. And that is part of our human experience, to have that feeling of hard reality and limitation and the potential of real loss. And it serves a role in our human evolution of asking us, who do we want to be in the face of knowing that? How do we want to respond? What do we have control over? What can we shape? And who do we want to be in the face of those challenges? So just like the human beings facing mortality, and we were going to do the best we can to be healthy, to resolve issues we have with loved ones, to get things in order in our lives, we're dealing with mortality that way. In a collective, we also have to deal with, what can we do to be healthy? What can we do to be sustainable? What can we do to live longer, right? Humanity will end at some point, but we hope that it's way, way in the future, right? So, and there's a lot of choice that we have. A lot of this, we have done it to ourselves 100%. So, so how we respond to that and what we do now matters, and what you do matters. So thank you so much for being here. I'm Marina Orms. You can learn more about me at astrologyheals.com. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel so you can see more of me. Keep me going here by hitting the subscribe button. I thank you so much for being here and for your support. Please share this video with a friend if you enjoyed what you heard. And I'll see you next time. I'm here every day with astrology for unshakable self-care. See you next time.